David Knack. I'm account executive with Botco.ai. Have really enjoyed getting to know all the folks over at the Green Room, and have worked with Darrell on a few different projects, and are currently building some chatbots together using our platform. So everybody on this webinar, I'm sure, already knows what good folks they are, but we've really enjoyed working together. I've learned a lot, specifically in kind of this data interoperability. Where are these things hopefully going towards? And I know Darrell and the team are doing a lot to really push interoperability further. I've got Jacob Molina, who's our product manager at Botco.ai, based out of Montreal in Canada. And just briefly before I turn it over to him, just wanted to share that what we hear from the market right now is that typically healthcare organizations are thinking about ways to implement AI and have already implemented AI in a lot of very back office, pattern recognition, algorithm types of ways, right? How do we identify patterns and inform caregivers, inform operations personnel better? What I think the next step is, and that the ChatGPT built a business case for and also made all of us a little bit nervous, was how do we use the computing power of generative AI and these large language models to carry on different types of interactions with patients? And like Darrell said at the beginning, sure, everybody here, I'm sure, has played with ChatGPT, has tested some of the capabilities of LLMs, but would you trust that to interact with your patients? And so that's kind of the context that Botco AI finds itself with. And I brought Jacob on in part to share what are the things that we've done at Botco AI to make us feel comfortable in trusting the computing power of LLM to our customers who are using our chatbots to interact with patients on their behalf.
Yeah, so I just want to walk you guys through a chart here, a graph here that explains kind of the way our system works in conjunction with large language models. So this is a very simplified version of it. This is kind of the version that David will and the sales team would typically show prospects going in. But I think because we have a slightly more technical team here, and I think we can go into the weeds and get a bit more familiar with exactly what that means. And so if you go on the next slide, David, I can show exactly what's happening. So the idea here is that when a user shares a message, the first step that we have to prevent, because what you'll see in this chart, there's a couple of guardrails here, because the biggest thing here is preventing hallucination from happening, and also not sharing PII data with language models like ChatGPT, and so and not exposing that data to third-party systems. So you want to keep that internal. So the first guardrail we have in place is what we call our pre-trained intent classifier. And so what that does is basically detect the intent of the user as they're entering, chatting with the bot and sharing a message. And so that way we can detect if it's like something that needs to be handled by a custom workflow, whether that's a form, a capture, or if we want to have it answered by our AI system. So that depends on specific workflows that are built. And so that's the second guardrail, those workflows. So based on the intent, we can route the user to different workflows, whether it's the form or getting the question answered. And then the next thing is if we do decide that we want the AI to answer the question, the first step that would happen is we would go into our Botco AI retriever master, and then we would basically that has been trained with documents, enterprise documents from your company, and we'd be able to search for those paragraphs in which the document, the answer may be held. And so that way, that's one other way that we prevent from large language models from hallucinating, because we'll be fetching from your documents, your collections of data, to be able to source the answer. And so we're not looking at the World Wide Web to pull out an answer and pray that it's the right answer. We're really focusing on ensuring that it's coming straight from your documents, from your data. And then the next thing is applying custom prompts. So each customer has the ability to touch on, add different prompts, tweak the different prompts. Say if you're a senior living facility, you may say you're a chatbot, senior facility chatbot, and you're here to help. And they can customize that prompt to their liking. And so that enables them to have a much more conversational approach, and also enable them to negate certain have like negative prompts built in, so that we don't want to talk about medication, or we don't want to talk about this. And so it gives more direction and guardrails around the answer that the AI is going to generate. And then finally, the last guardrail, which is the PII filter, using our fine-tuned models. This enables us to not share the PII data, because we can recognize that it's PII data, and share it only with internal models that we've used and trained. So these are models that are proprietary to Botco, that we work to fine-tuning with our customers' data, so we make sure that the data stays within our BA and an environment that Botco and our customers trust, that the data can be shared, and only certain people with certain access can access this. Certain permissions can access this data. So that's kind of the whole flow of how the user engages, and this happens like instantly, right? This is a couple seconds, not even, but this whole workflow happens via chat and through previous training of the chatbot.
But Jacob, one thing that I hear a lot on kind of the sales side of the house is, how long have you been an AI company? And because we know that when OpenAI made their APIs available, there were a whole lot more AI companies than there had been the day or two before. And so, one of the things that stuck out to me as I've kind of ridden along on engineering and product conversations is the impact that all of our work in AI previously, that had a lot to do with what Darrell shared of NLP, and it was a very manual and kind of rote process. But those kind of, I'd be curious on your perspective of like the work that we did as an AI company before ChatGPT existed, before LLMs became kind of what everyone was talking about. What did that groundwork enable us to do that's a distinctive and that people should look for when they're trying to find an AI partner?
Yeah, so the first thing is like transcripts. So having conversational transcripts already working conversations, so that we can fine tune those models and see which answers were correct and which ones were not, and train the model based on those on that feedback. That's the number one thing. And then also, we're still leveraging all the initial technology that we built from the last 5 years before we were building with large language models. And so that's the top layer, right? It's the web app and the custom workflows, the pre-trained intent classifier. So these are all key items that are part of this workflow, and making the whole experience work. Because we've definitely seen like platforms out there that are really focused on the generative part, and so they'll just upload your documents and then just put, and you can ask a question. I'm sure you've tried to like upload a PDF, ask a question about the PDF, but there's no. It's a really simplistic version, and we realize that in healthcare, it requires a lot more massaging of the experience and of the workflow, because there's a lot more security and concerns, and so we need to take care of those. And so the more complex flow like this is better to address them.
Yeah, I think that's what's really stood out to me is it felt like when LLMs became kind of the rule of the day, that all the work that we'd done on NLP architecture and had been kind of wasted effort, but it became pretty apparent pretty quickly that all that work is still really gives us the ability to create those guardrails around LLMs and ensure all these things we're talking about, security and privacy, and making sure that we're avoiding hallucinations and accuracy and all those sorts of things. We work with the ALS Association. Probably most people are familiar with their work, if only from the Ice Bucket Challenge that they did a few years back. But they have a couple of things going on. One, they've got pretty significant volume of website visitors, and want to be able to create a good experience for those website visitors. The other thing, they've got a ton of content on their website. ALS is a complicated disease. There's a lot of different reasons somebody might be trying to learn about ALS. They've received a diagnosis, friend or family member has received a diagnosis. They're looking to get involved because of some kind of personal connection to the community. And there's all these different resources that might be relevant to them. And so they came to us and said, hey, we think a chatbot would help improve this website navigation experience. And so as we started to build with them, we kind of went down the road that we've typically gone down, and we'll say, okay, well, what are your 100 most commonly asked questions? And, how do we figure out a whole bunch of different ways to ask these questions? And right as we were in the middle of building, we saw a couple of things. Was one, they didn't have like 100 commonly asked questions. They had like 1,500 commonly asked questions. And so if we were going to extrapolate out how complicated it would be to build one of the chatbots the old way, we were going to really run into some challenges with this customer. But the other thing that we saw was that the types of questions that they were getting were really complex. And so NLP is good if you have a one-part question, right? What locations do you have? What services do you offer? Do you take my insurance? Those like subject, verb, predicate kinds of questions, NLP can handle just fine. But when you get into these multi-part questions of, you know, uh, here's the context for my question, and I'm wondering about this, and then also this third thing, NLP just doesn't know how to categorize those types of intents, and so typically we hit the fallback. It's like, oops, sorry, I don't know that one. And so what we found was that generative AI was really uniquely suited to answer questions that were more complex in nature. And one of the things that we didn't anticipate, and that was has been a really nice part of this experience for them and for their users, has been it's kind of a place where people kind of come in and can kind of dump some of their emotion, uh, and the chatbot is able to like respond in a considerate way. I wouldn't call it like it's not. We're not getting creepy. This isn't some kind of like digital therapist or anything like that. But it's able to kind of acknowledge the human emotion that's in the transcripts, but also solve the problem. So I pulled a couple of transcripts that I've seen that I've been really impressed with. So this person came in, they said, I'd like to ask a question. We said, how can I help you? And they asked a pretty complex multi-part question that's also got a couple of things going on, right? My dad just died from ALS, totally traumatized. What do I do with the eye computer, the wheelchair, the toilet, all of these medical devices the person had? So this is like two-part question. This thing happened, and it is a sad thing that happened. But also, I have this really practical question of like, what do I do with the stuff that somebody else could use? And so the chatbot was able, I think, to acknowledge the human emotion really well. Hey, totally understandable to feel that way. Um, Here's what you can do with the stuff. You may want to consider donating those devices to a local organization, ALS association, or other organizations may be able to help you find that. Here's some other options that you can have. And so, just from this was pretty early on, and it was immediate validation of, oh man, this is able to do something that our NLP would never have been able to do. And the process that we used to get this answer was just like what Jacob described. It's we went to their enterprise documents to find the content sources that answered this question. And then we're using the LLMs strategically to summarize and to make really clear and conversational answers to the questions that are shared with them.